Good afternoon, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I'll welcome you along to this extraordinary meeting of council to consider our submissions to the long-term plan 2021-31. We have two apologies this afternoon. Councillor Nick Grant and Councillor Bolger are unable to be with us. So would somebody like to move that those apologies be sustained, please? Move Councillor Gardine, seconded Councillor McDonnell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, so we have a process to work through this afternoon, and we've had 154 submitters. 19 have indicated they'd like to speak to you this afternoon. Some have, again, since that time withdrawn. So we have a schedule that we'll work through quite deliberately and purposefully. There's 10 minutes allowed for each speaker. The only request for extra time that I've had has come from Mr. Gardine, and I've said to him that depending on how we're going time-wise at that stage, I may allow a little bit of extra time, but otherwise we'll stick pretty close to what we have scheduled. We have a long afternoon to get through and a lot of very worthy submissions to consider. Before I ask the Chief Executive to just give his opening comments, are there any particular questions from councillors? I guess probably the only thing that I would like to reinforce, and particularly for councillors who may be entering into this process for the first time, and this is an opportunity for the submitters to speak to us, and it is not an opportunity for debating with submitters. It's an opportunity to understand exactly what they're saying and requesting. And in that situation, there is an opportunity to question a submitter, but it is really around getting clarity about what they're after as opposed to entering into a debate. So if everybody would abide by that rule, then I think we'll get through things pretty quickly. Okay, any Councillor Grant?
Yes, Your Worship, just for clarification, I am the representative, Gore District Council representative on the first submitted Gore District St James Theatre Trust.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for declaring that. Are there any other comments or questions councillors want to make before we start?
Just to clear the, in regard to St James, just a family member that's employed by St James Theatre.
Okay, thank you. If there's not, Mr Chief Executive, do you want to make any opening comments at all?
Not really, Your Worship. For the staff's point of view, we really like extras in a movie. We will be here just to take notes and observe the proceedings, and then the staff will compile a report that will go to the council meeting next Wednesday, where that's the deliberative meeting, where the council will be invited to make decisions on the issues raised by submitters, both here today and in the written submissions that we have already received.
Okay, so we'll move on to the first submission, and that is indeed a submission from Gore District's St James Theatre Trust, and a submission under the name of Craig McIntyre. So if I could ask the submitters, when their time has arrived, if they can come forward and use the table at the front here, and ask them to use the microphone as well. We are live streaming today, and for people who are watching externally, then they need to be able to hear what you're saying. So unless the microphone is working and you're using it, they won't know what you're saying. The same goes for councillors as well. Please remember to use your microphone when you are asking a question. So Craig, if you're ready, do you want to come forward? Is the microphone on? There will be a ring of a bell at 8 minutes and another ring at 10 minutes, just to keep everybody on task with time. So welcome along, and the floor is yours. I think you can take it for read, and I'll say this to all submitters, you can take it as read that councillors have read and understand the submissions at this point.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Your Mayor, councillors, good afternoon. I'm here today representing the Gore and District St James Theatre Trust. For those that don't know me, my name's Craig McIntyre and I'm the current chairman of the Trust. Helping with the presentation today is Yvonne Bannerman, who is also a trustee, and Phil Conroy, who's the project manager, and he's from Shan Shelton Company in Wellington. In 1936, the St James Theatre was opened. In 1987, Caledonian decided that they would sell the theatre. The Gore Operatic Society, Gore Host Lions, Gore Rotary Club, and the Gore Borough Council came together and agreed on the need to retain a theatre for the benefit of Gore and the district community. The Gore and District St James Theatre Trust was established to own the theatre. The mandate is to ensure that the theatre remains for the community, responsible for the capital expenditure. The purchase was funded by the Gore Operatic Society. A 45-year operational lease was granted to the Gore Operatic Society. The Theatre Operations Committee was established and they are responsible for the operations and the maintenance costs. The initial works completed. The main auditorium was reconfigured to enable a stage for a live performance. The basic dressing room space was created back of house to support live performances. The foyer was reconfigured and front of house toilets increased. A second small cinema was created. The theatre was re-roofed, tenancy spaces created, the Green Room Cafe being a long-standing tenancy, and also at the moment the sushi shop. These works were enabled through the success of fundraising, support of local companies, and volunteer hours undertaken by the Gore Operatic Society members, as well as the Gore Lions Club and Rotary Club members. The initial works enabled the theatre to become more than just a movie theatre. It enabled a community buy-in in the retention of the theatre. While limited in its facilities, it began to encourage and support other community uses. The combination of cinema, live theatre, cafe and toilets established the theatre as being more than just a destination.
In 1998, the Trust identified a need to upgrade the facility for live performance and address health and safety issues that existed. A concept design established in 1998 that we had to seismically strengthen the building, and that left the Trust with a task of raising some $2.7 million over the next 10 years, which it did, including a $250,000 contribution from Gore District Council. The construction was finally undertaken in 2008, 2009. It was a mix of local contractors, all but 4 were from the district and Gore, and volunteers. And that was delivered on time and within budget, and actually extended the scope of works that we started out with day one. That delivered the auditorium, stage house, back of house facilities to a NBS of the day of 65% at IL3. In 2012, the cinema plant was upgraded to digital, and over that time, the Trust raised not only $3.75 million to achieve that, it also was successful by virtue of the fact of the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of voluntary hours that were put in by its members. So, as a result of that, the theatre attracts people like the Royal New Zealand Ballet, the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, Court Theatre. In fact, today we have Neil Diamond in the theatre. So Gore has become part of the New Zealand touring circuit, which is bringing the cultural and financial benefits into the district. It also enhances the community users' production values, and as you'll see from one of those photographs in there, the quality of that production, which is Mamma Mia, was second to none. It also, by lifting the uses, has ensured that the income stream for the operations and maintenance is able to be funded by its operation, and that's pretty unique. The next stages for the Trust are to take the building in its current state and complete the seismic strengthening. And for that, we have to strengthen a wall in the foyer. We have to create a lift to address the issues raised by Council's compliance officers of non-accessibility for persons with disabilities. We need to add accessible toilets to the foyer and generally do a refurbishment of those, as well as re-roof the small cinema. The project budget is $1.29 million plus GST.
So, we have raised 637,000. That has not been an easy feat. We've got a shortfall of 653,000. We've currently got 2 applications in that are being considered at the moment, one to Regional Culture and Heritage and one to TTCF funding, which hopefully will bring us 516,000, which leaves us a shortfall of 137,000. But we have exhausted all avenues of funding. And we also are now running the risk that some of that 553,000 will have to be returned to the funders. The lottery's grant of 300,000 has an expiry date of November, and Transpower also has an expiry date looming very shortly. So we have exhausted all avenues for funding, and we run the risk of this project not going ahead, and the impact on the community will be huge. The St James Theatre is a key community asset. It fosters the arts and delivers a huge amount of wellbeing and benefit for our community.
As a theatre consultant working right throughout New Zealand and experience with many local authorities and their theatres, Gore, or the St James Theatre Gore, is unique. It doesn't receive a subsidy for its operation, council or otherwise, and in most provincial New Zealand and main cities, councils either own and operate those theatres, and in the case of a couple that are owned by trusts, actually subsidise their operation. And that, in 2 cases, is somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 per annum. Since 1987, as I indicated before, GDC have supported the St James Theatre to the tune of $250,000. For the Trust to maintain this facility for the community, it needs help.
So this submission today, we're seeking Gore District Council to underwrite the funding required to this facility for this next step to ensure the funds raised remain available. The amount is subject pending, as we've mentioned, could be between 137,000 to 653,000. Your support will ensure that the theatre is retained for all our community. And this aligns with the Gore District Council's rural city living, ready for living, ready to grow and age friendly. It is the heart of our town. Thank you.
Okay, look, thank you very much for that presentation, and it's now open for councillors if they need any clarity on what is being asked for. I think it's reasonably straightforward, although I will ask if you could just perhaps expand a little bit on what you mean by asking the council to underwrite an amount of money.
As mentioned, it could be, well, basically at the moment, it's the 657,000 off the top of my head. That was 653 is the shortfall at the moment.
Yeah.
Our risk is that if we don't get money to continue it on, that funds that we have will start going back. So that amount will only increase.
So I guess by the question I'm asking is, what does underwrite mean?
To pay to
Meet the shortfall.
meet the shortfall.
Yeah, okay. Yep, that's right. Just as long as we're clear
We are,
on
yeah.
what that means. Okay, questions, councillors? Any clarification required? Look, I think it's a good submission, and I think everybody understands what you're asking for. And I'd just like to say thank you for the submission. If there's no other questions, oh, there is. Sorry.
Question for the submitters. When will you know about your applications?
Okay, the LEH, Lottery Environmental Heritage, they are due to make a decision tomorrow, and we're meant to hear within the next 10 days after that. The TTCF funding, it is an application that we have been told to put in, and so again, because there are time restraints with the money, we have held off putting it in, but we have been told that that it would be probably well supported.
We need to have consent prior
Yes.
to...
Yes, we do. Before we can put in, it needs to have consent, and the work would be, the funds would be for the refurbishment of the little theatre, okay? So that's where we've taken. A lot of our funds have been targeted for certain things, like we've put in applications, like some of them meet the criteria for structural work, so we can have to isolate that out and direct the application for that. Some of it is for lift. So, you know, that's how we've managed to break it down. But the total cost of the project is 1.2 million.
Okay. Brett?
Yeah, thanks for your submission. Just a question around your project budget. What certainty do you have on the 1.29 million? I see you're calling for tenders. Have you been through a QS process, or just...
Yes, we have. Design-wise, we're at developed design at this point. The anticipation is that we will be lodging for consent. We've had pre-app meetings with council. We'll be lodging for consent in August, and as soon as we lodge for consent, we'll be working through our pricing. The procurement method will be the same as we did with the stage tower, which the trust, we managed the risk for the trust, and that paid significant dividends for them in terms of the extent of the work. In terms of the dollars, the estimate has been done by a registered QS and has been done in light of how we would go about building the building. So the methodology has been worked through with the construction manager that will take the job forward that built the stage house. So we're reasonably confident around the numbers. What we don't have control about is the imported product and cost exchange rate, which is why we have a contingency sum. Contingency sum sitting at about 114,000.
Okay.
Can I just add that I passed around, further to our submission, just the use of the theatre, and on the back page you'll see that we've got Victorian Productions, the community use, the 2,800 screenings per year, plus the Gore Musical Theatre's annual productions. But without the Gore District Council support, the St James Theatre will inevitably close if the seismic strengthening is not done. So please, that would be a town without a heart, without a theatre.
Thank you, Yvonne. I think I've heard you say that before.
I think I've said that.
Bronwyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, submitters. That's a really good application and submission. I just wanted to know whether or not, does all the work that you need to do have to be completed at once, so that, you know, maybe the little theatre could be completed down the track?
Do you want me to answer that? I'll answer part of it, and then you can have a go. Most of it does, because where the structural work is done is where the lift goes in, and the fact is that you can't put, we would never be allowed to put the lift in, because then you couldn't do the structural work, and I don't think any of your building inspectors would allow us to do that. But because we're opening up that area, the costs would go up significantly if we did them separately, because we'd be opening up the same areas.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McPhail.
Yes, thank you for your submission. As the other councillors have alluded to, it's well presented. Just to confirm the codependency between the two associated businesses and the St James Theatre. So if the St James Theatre, if you have here, inevitably closes, those two other associated businesses will not function?
You're talking okay, so the theatre's owned by the trust, okay? The business is leased out to Gore Musical Theatre.
No, in regard to the other two
And the other two businesses. Yes, they are leased there. So if the building was shut, the movie business and the live theatre business would close, the green room would close, and the sushi shop, because they are all within that facility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, Councillor Hosted?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Just a question around financial information. Obviously, it's important to this council that we support a viable and ongoing organisation that's sustainable. Have you provided a copy of the financials for the trust and the GMT as part of your
yes, the trust, every year I drop in the financial statement once they're audited and once they've been sent to the Charities Commission, so they have been done every year. The Gore Musical Theatre, because it's like a business lease separate to us, we don't actually have necessary access to that, so that hasn't been submitted or given to the council. That would be, I guess, a business decision for them that we would have to consult with them about.
Okay. I guess it's probably public information on the company's website we could probably grab ourselves. It's just that's where the income is. If you look at your financials, as you've stated, you're very much the building owner.
Yes.
The actual income generation happens in that organisation.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're saying.
I'm sure you can access that way, yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from councillors? If not, look, thank you very much for your submission, and we'll get back to you. We'll be deliberating on all the submissions in a week's time, and we'll certainly be in touch as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Public Health South, and we have Dr. Leanne Liggett. Welcome, Leanne. You've been here before, I think, a few times. Okay, look, the floor is yours for 10 minutes, and then there's likely to be questions or questions from councillors.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors and staff of the Gore District Council. As Your Worship has mentioned, my name is Leanne Liggett. I am an analyst at Public Health South, and I've also had the pleasure of facilitating all long-term planning across the Southern District, which actually entails 9 different plans. So I've been involved with lots of reading and understanding, and so I must commend the District Council in putting together a lovely plan that is easy to read. And with me here today is Gordon Crombie, and he's a health promoter here at our local Invercargill office. And look, in this post-COVID world, public health is really looking to maximise our effectiveness and how we're supporting our communities. And already we work really closely with your council staff, and we're making a really conscious effort at the moment to provide upstream input into policy development and also any other support that we can do so. So it won't surprise you to know that all of the information that we put in our submission, the council staff actually are familiar with this. Nothing is new there. And so because of that, we're only going to mention and discuss a couple of things with you guys today. So we are very, as I've alluded to, we're really keen on working on partnership, working together and understanding how we can improve the health and wellbeing in our district, specifically here in Gore. And one of the things that we would like to be able to provide further support is around the smoke-free policies. There has been a lot of good work done in this area in recent years. We have Smoke-Free Aotearoa 2025 almost upon us, and there's just a few more things that we'd like to be able to provide support to the council staff to, progress this along. Secondly, public health units across the country, we're using the World Health Organisation's Sustainable Development Goals in how we're doing our planning and how we're actually communicating with council staff and also councillors. And we really believe that this is a fabulous process that is worldwidely acknowledged around council staff, and also how we can look at things, because it has a public health approach, because of the 17 indicators that are captured within this, it has timeframes which fall through to about a 15-year period. So it allows for things to happen over time, and it also is very easy for us to reflect on how this works from a council's perspective. And to demonstrate this tool, Gordon's going to talk about the Streets Alive project.
Thank you, Luanne. Good afternoon, Your Worship, Mayor Hicks and councillors. Public Health South acknowledges the work that the Gore District Council has already begun with the Streets Alive program. It's been a hard road to date, but we would encourage you to continue with that. Alongside the pilot, Public Health South has been working with the 4 primary schools in Gore to understand why they use active transport and what can be done to promote the use of active transport within those schools. The feedback across all those 4 schools has been pretty consistent. Children want to be physically active and they want to do it with their friends. We asked children what would encourage them to use active transport to get to and from school. As I said, their responses were pretty consistent. Children want safe places to be dropped off at and picked up from, away from the school gates, thus reducing congestion around the school gates. Children don't necessarily want to stop to play on the way to and from school, but they do want their travel to be interesting, and they identified such things as murals on walls and the storybook trail. Children want their journey to be safe, suggesting cycle trails across existing green spaces. They also want places of interest to be easily accessible. Children identify traffic speed as a deterrent to active transport. Children want traffic slowing measures put in place to make the school journey safe. Some of the children we spoke to provided us with the following quotes. I walk or bike to school each day, and I like doing it as Mum has a lot of schools to go to, so it is a lot faster. I get dropped off at Sword Street and walk across the park to come into school. I walk 2 younger children who have parents that teach at Gore High School with my dad, to and from West School every morning and every afternoon. My cousin, who is at St. Peter's, walks with me to and from school when my grandparents are working. I walk my 2 younger brothers to school every morning. I walk to my mum's work at Hello Banana after school and get a lift home from there. Active transport most commonly refers to walking and cycling, but other modes include skateboarding and scootering, which a lot of children currently do. Research has repeatedly shown the health benefits attached to active transport, but other benefits include the potential for active travel to reduce car use, which would reduce congestion, air and noise pollution, as well as energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. Local authorities have a range of policy options available to them to encourage active transport. One of the main objectives is to make active transport more convenient and safer for users, as these factors have a large impact on mobility choices made by people. The benefits linked to improved walking and cycling conditions, and most of these were identified by the school children, to reduce travel time and more comfort for pedestrians and cyclists, increased accessibility to amenities, improved safety for vulnerable user groups through increased visibility, reduced traffic speeds and safer infrastructure, and reduced energy consumption. Benefits linked to the reduced vehicle usage, obviously reduced noise pollution, reduced greenhouse gas and other harmful emissions, increased traffic safety through the reduction of motorised traffic, reduced vehicle travel times through diminishing congestion levels, improved quality of life through more social interaction, improvement in private businesses by increased attractiveness of public spaces. And we actually spoke with staff at the Green Room following or during the trial period, and they identified that the improvements made as part of the Streets Alive project had made their business space more attractive for people to stop outside. You have the opportunity to continue the changes that children have requested you make, to allow their journey to and from school to be safer and more enjoyable. You have the opportunity to plan infrastructure that links people's homes, work and other places of interest. You have the opportunity to contribute to the well-being of the people of the Gore district through the promotion of active transport with all of its benefits. Leanne referred to the Sustainable Development Goals earlier as a framework to improve health outcomes for the population. People's safety, the inclusion of all people, and climate change are three of those development goals. Public Health South would encourage you to allow your town to thrive, where people can move around easily and have a range of travel choices for getting to work and education, connecting them with family and friends, and the ability to access the services in your town. Thank you.
We welcome any questions you may have.
Oh, thank you, Gordon and Leanne. Just one question I have, and you refer in your submission around the well-being, are recommending equity of access to Hamilton Park be improved. I guess, are you specifically pointing towards the State Highway 1 crossing there, or what does that mean?
Yes, when working with East Gore School, we attempted to cross the road over to Hamilton Park. Obviously it's a 70k zone there, and then when you're coming down the hill it's 100k. So access directly from across the school was very, very difficult, and the children didn't feel safe doing so. There was actually 3 children with myself and a teacher aide, and it didn't feel safe. The park itself, there's some fantastic equipment in that park, but most of the children at East Gore School didn't access that park simply because of the safety issue of crossing the highway.
Thank you. Okay, councillors, questions of Leanne or Gordon? Councillor Gardine?
Just, I noticed you mentioned fluoridation for our water. Is there any funding available from the health department for that, or do we have to fund that as a council? Just a question.
So, sorry. That is a process that is still with central government at the moment. I thought it was important to include that in all of our submissions around long-term planning, that public health response around fluoridation is we will always advocate and support fluoridation in our communities. And as things evolve over time, then I'm sure central government will actually provide that support for things to roll out. But at the moment it's in a hiatus. We're hoping that decisions will be made shortly, but I understand the decision has been moved from councils to health at this point. That's where the indication is where it's going.
Thank you. Any further questions from councillors? There's not. Look, thank you very much for your interest. Thank you for the submission, and we'll certainly deliberate on this as time goes on.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, that brings us to the Hokunu Mountain Bike Club and Richard. Richard, are you and your team ready to go? Welcome along. And so you have 10 minutes for your submission, and there will be a bell at 8 minutes and a further one at 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity to speak to our submission. I would also like to thank the Council for their support to date through the CEO and the former Parks and Reserves Manager. We have appreciated their support over the last few years. And also thanks for the support, by the way, the grant 3 years ago to finish off the water race trail. So we appreciate that we have a working relationship with each other now. And over the past few years, the club has actually grown in strength to strength. We have a really strong structure and committee now. Yeah, we could just hold that before we tick. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, we'd just like to highlight a few of the areas that we're working with. We have a strong club, as I said, a strong committee, and we've got quite a few different areas that we're working with. And the one on the video now is at Hamilton Park. So it's quite an interesting timing. The group before us was mentioning access to Hamilton Park. So Hamilton Park's got a great lot of facilities, as they mentioned. There's, the BMX track, there's plenty of places to walk, there's plenty of places. And so we've developed a few wee mountain bike trails in some tree areas in there. This is by way of a funding grant from local funders and a lot of volunteer work. So our club has got, like I said, a strong membership now, so a lot of support. So we'd just like to play a little bit of that clip, if we could, just to show you a little bit about it. Thanks, that should be enough. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it gives you a bit of an idea. So that's aimed at, it's not just a flat sort of trail, that's something a little bit more advanced the kids, families can have a bit of fun on. We're also quite involved with the trails over there that were a bit more flatter and a bit easier gradient. And that is, you're probably all aware how the trees got felled and they've sort of been put on hold for a while. So we are quite keen and would like to stay involved with the planning of those, what happens there in the future. The club's got a lot of enthusiastic workers that would like to see some of those trails reinstalled when they can. Now I'd like to move on to the cordon bush. I think we've got a photo there of just, we didn't really get time to get some video together. We would have liked to. So a lot of you have heard about the cordon bush track, the waterways track, so that has been undergo for quite a while now. We are finally in the completion stages this spring. Yeah, there we go. So our plans in the future for that, once we do get the opening this spring, is to look at develop a few more trails through a different variety of people. So at the moment we've got a sort of a grade 2-3 trail, and we'd like to look at developing a few further trails that will attract more people to the area. We're also really keen to develop some history and some storyboards around this trail. This is, it's quite a well-known historical area. There was a lot of tree felling years ago, cordon bush, a wee school, etc. out that way. Obviously it was the mining. Then there's the little legend of the moonshine story as well. So we'd like to think that if we could have that all on storyboards throughout the length of the trail, that people would come to town. It's not just riding your bike, you're learning a bit of history, you're finding more about it. That's something that's probably outside the club's skill set, so we'd really like support with that area just to help develop that side of it. That we think would also be great for local schools and kids as well to learn a lot about their history. And we'll move on to the Reedy Road Trail. So, so this is something that some volunteers began work on. It was something that we've promoted and talked about for a number of years, and then finally one of our local club members just decided just to get in and start doing it to see what it looked like. So this work is sort of halfway through the work he'd done. It's a bit of a better standard now, and we're in the process of funding. We're applying for funding to finish or to complete this trail to a certain area. So what we want to do is link Gore to the cordon bush, then would link Gore to Dollamore Park. So therefore, kids and families can safely ride from Gore to Dollamore Park, and also visitors. Obviously, you're all aware of e-bikes now. In the past, you might have thought, gee, that could be a bit tough, but nowadays with e-bikes, it makes it such an easy, accessible trail, and it's not just for, it can be for any age group. It's skill level wise. The trail has got a few corners on that are sharp, but generally it's pretty achievable. I just rode the new Clyde to Cromwell one a few days ago, and it's certainly got plenty of sharp corners on it too, but it's very busy and very popular. And so, yeah, that's just something that we're trying to do. A lot of it's volunteer work. That the funding that we got last time was to help gravel the track, and we are going to plan to do that the next few months to finish that off. So there's not a lot of huge amount of dollars involved, because we do get a lot of volunteer work in there, and the helicopter company's going to do it for a cost price type of thing. So we are able to get a lot of support from the community when we do these projects, and the same with what's been done at Reby Road. It's all been paid for. A lot of volunteers and local businesses have donated things. So we will be trying to get that link done out towards Dollamore Park later this year. And just following on what the group said before, we believe Hamilton Park access is really a priority that needs to be looked at. There's a lot more cars on the road now. It's very, very, very busy. And with the developments coming up at Hamilton Park, it would be great to see a safe way to get across there. I know I've tried it with my family a number of times when they were a bit younger, and it's very challenging. So, yeah, we'll just put that there to be looked at as well. So we're also asking the council to consider an annual grant towards what the club's doing for cycling projects. Obviously we realise funding is not a lot available, so we're asking for 22-23 start, and we're asking for 25,000 per annum. We believe this is a huge area. Now there's a huge part of our community that cycles, and it's a very, very small part. It's a very small budget when you look at other areas, and there's a lot of people doing it. And for that, each dollar, we obviously can attract funding with that dollar. Plus, we've got a huge amount of volunteer support that come along and help. So we believe it would be a really worthwhile investment for our community. As cycling's growing throughout New Zealand, and we are, I guess, behind a little bit in what's going on if you look around other communities. But we believe we've got a beautiful native bush area to ride in. We've got something unique. Not many areas in New Zealand have such a beautiful native bush area, and to be able to link the town through there, we've got a chance to have something worthwhile, for our locals and for visitors as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, councillors, the floor's open for any questions that you may want to ask at this point in time. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. Richard, you're from the previous few years ago with Department of Conservation. Everything's all hunky dory with Department of Conservation.
Hunky dory is a nice word.
Hunky dory, everything's all well and
yes.
fantastic.
Yes, we've got great support from there now. Yeah, we did have a hiccup, if you like, there for a little while. Just had to get a few things clarified, and so we've been 12 months now back meeting together, and they're very, very supportive actually. Our club is also along that side working closely with the Runanga, looking at putting a trapping program in that area. That's something that some of the club members are interested in as well. So we are, I know, we want to use the bush, and some people think cycling is a little bit outside bush use, but if you see from the photo, or your former photo there, it's a lot narrower than it was. The bush has grown back, and so we do really want to protect that bush, but we do want to see it being accessed as well.
Councillor Dixon. Glenys, can I just ask you to turn your microphone on, please? Just hold it. No, speak loudly. Is it done?
Thank you. Richard, I'm just wondering if you have numbers of young people and right through to adults that are using the trails at present?
No, we don't have any formal counters. Doc had one years ago, but we haven't actually talked about it. I guess that could be a good way of showing how many people use it. We're informal. Doc took a lot of, I don't know if anyone's heard of Strava, but it's a lot of riders put their rides on this community page. It's a bit like Facebook, except it's just a wee map. and they had a lot of heat maps, and they showed us the amount of people riding, and it was huge numbers. So they realised a lot of people are using it, but we haven't actually put any formal counters in. I guess there's a lot of things the club can do, and there's a lot we sort of haven't got the ability to do, we haven't tried to do yet.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor McPhail.
Thanks, Richard, for the presentation there. Just in regard to the sort of that closing paragraph in the submission there, that government's obviously investing, in the centre of Otago. Have we got, like you guys are obviously established in there, or you've got some contacts so that they're seeing what you're doing, and as we're increasing stuff, like with central government, around sort of if we're going to be assisting, that if it grows to, the next level, they are in the know?
Not as far as I'm aware. The government was only committing to key tourist areas, the John Key type funding from years ago, so we're not actually a key tourist area, unfortunately. Well, we've got access to the local community trust, the MLT, the lotteries grant, which is what we'll be applying to for this roadside and further development there. It's not as huge money, obviously, like what they put into those other trails, but it is something, and something's better than nothing, I guess. I don't know how to get access to those other funds.
Okay, no, thanks.
Councillor Hosted.
Yeah, thanks for your submission, Richard and Drew. Look, I think it's a real credit to the club in terms of what it's achieved, but could you just tell us a little about your club structure in terms of how you're organised to deliver these projects? You seem to have quite a bit on the go. So the council can understand how the club actually works.
Yes, yeah. So we realised a few years ago that we probably were a little bit unstructured, we're informal if you like, and had a few challenges from it. So we've got a committed, if you like, I guess you might call them a board now rather than a committee. Or we want them committed to be there for a 12-month period in the next 12-month period. So then rather than just have a club, some clubs do, you turn up occasionally or whatever. So we're quite committed now, and we've got leaders for each key area. So Andrew here leads the Reby Road Development Project. Jared, hope some of you know, he's leading the Croydon Bush area, and Ewan Pearce leads the Hamilton Park area. So I kind of don't get involved with hands-on sort of some of that stuff, but just try and oversee and coordinate. So we have small subgroup meetings that meet in between our monthly meetings, especially this on side of the road project's been quite a big project to fundraise to get the I guess the project established, what it's going to cost and what you have to do. So so we meet in between if we need to, and we have, like I said, we've got a dozen people committed to turning up each month to help support the group. The TNC are our club rooms now. They've got a board room, which is quite thankful for that.
Great. Okay, councillors, any further questions? There's not. Look, thank you, Richard and Andrew, for your submission, and we, as I've said before, will be considering these in depth and having some deliberations next week. So we'll certainly be back in touch with you as soon as we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sports Southland. We've got Jess and Gemma. Would you like to come forward, please? Welcome along. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Gemma O'Neill toku ingoa, ko toku mahi Eastern Regional Active Coordinator for Sports Southland.
Ko Jess Domigan toku ingoa, ko toku mahi General Manager Sports Southland. Firstly, we have an apology from our Chief Executive, Brenda McDermott. He is on school camp and he sends his apologies for not being here. We'd also like to start by saying thank you. Thank you and congratulations for the work you and your team do in the Gore district. We are sure the tough decisions that are made and the work being done is often taken for granted, so we wanted to thank you for the investment that you make to allow this community to be active through play, active recreation and sport. In addition, we would like to acknowledge the work that Ian Soper did in his Parks and Recreation role for 16 years. Also, thank you to your Chief Executive, Steve, Your Worship, Mayor Hicks and your various teams for your future-focused and positive attitude working with Sport Southland. We have an excellent relationship over many years and we're sure and look forward to many more to come.
As two different organisations, we believe we have the same kaupapa. We both want happy, healthy, connected people and communities where everyone can thrive. Sport Southland is not just about sport. We're here to enhance individual and community wellbeing through being active in whatever way that looks. A lot of councils' big financial decisions often involve replacing ageing infrastructure and continuing to deliver essential services. However, we should not forget about investing in people and their wellbeing. By activating spaces and places, ensuring they are vibrant, relevant, fit for purpose and accessible, we can enable happy, healthy and connected communities who will continue to use these assets for years to come. In our written submission, we supported the following options. Continued activation of key spaces and places such as Gore's Tracks and Trail Networks, Dollamore Park and the Gore Multisport Complex. We also see play as a critical component to ensure that a generation does not miss out on the wonderful experiences that play has given many of us. We suggest putting a play lens on all assets such as the Old Gore Library, the Heritage Precinct upgrade and Mirahiku Centre development, and the new Gore Library and James Cumming Community Centre. We strongly encourage Council to consider creating a play strategy that also incorporates a playground review. We know the other Southland councils are looking at this and we see it as an excellent collaboration project. Talking collaboration, over the past 18 months we have been working alongside your team, the other councils and funders with the development of the Southland Regional Spaces and Places strategy. This is now ready for adoption or endorsement by all organisations involved. One of the key successes to this project to date has been the positive conversations and sharing that has happened collectively and collaboratively between the councils, funders and ourselves. We now have a strategy, a good stock take of facilities and good momentum from working together. Let's not lose this momentum. It is key that we continue this mahi and we propose that all partners invest collaboratively in a small resource to keep this strategy and the actions moving forward. This resource would work alongside councils, funders and applicants and ensure that we have a better information to support decision making and help better utilise and maximise the potential of assets that we have or look to build in the future. The Sport Southland Board have adopted the strategy and will allocate 40% of the resource cost and are looking to councils and funders to partner with us over the next 3 years to ensure the Regional Spaces and Places strategy is implemented well and does not become another strategy on the shelf. We already have commitment from ICC and as another key partner, a partner who would be a major beneficiary of this work, we are looking to GDC to invest 5%, which is 10k per annum. GDC have a number of sport and recreation facilities on its land. A large number of these facilities are single-use and or seasonal facilities that vary in quality, with most rating only average to good condition. If we can better help utilise and maximise the potential of these assets by working with groups earlier, we can help prevent these facilities becoming a liability for council. It is critical we take a more strategic, aligned and collective approach to future investment into our sport and recreation facilities. By being a partner, you also have the potential opportunity to leverage other funding from the likes of Sport NZ. As a key partner, your support and leadership are critical. Without it, the opportunity to fully realise the objectives of the strategy diminishes.
In closing, we want to reiterate our thanks. Thank you for your time, investment and commitment to the people of the Gore District. Sport Southland looks forward to continuing our partnership and together supporting a community which not only grows but thrives. Ngā mihi nui.
Thank you. Thank you for the submission. Just a question from myself. With regard to regional spaces and places, so you're looking for a commitment of $10,000, I think it was, from us. Can you put that into context and just talk a little bit about what that is looking like across the region and who's involved and what we're going to get for that?
So the resource, as mentioned, is a role. It would be an employee based at Sport Southland, and it would sort of be a first port of call for any group that came through. It would work as a conduit to pass between councils, funders, and all the other stakeholders that were involved across the strategy to date. So everyone held a place on a steering committee, right from the iteration of this project to now. So it would just be a continuation of supporting all of those groups. They would retain their own individual decision making, but it would be a way to bring them together, I suppose.
Right, thank you. Okay, open for question, councillors. Everybody's struck dumb. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your submission. Can you elaborate a little bit on your play strategy at all?
A little bit. We know through the work we've been working alongside the Streets Alive project as well, and we know that for Gore District it's baby steps. It would be very earliest times for what play means in our region. But by way of example, with where Sport NZ's changes come from, they used to refer to everything as sport and recreation, sport and recreation. Now their wording is always play, active recreation and sport. So the highlighting that importance of that play for our youth, but also intergenerationally, is hugely important, and what that may look like across the board for a council could be very different. But we would hope that it's something that sort of becomes the norm in any projects that are being done, that play lens is added over the top, so it becomes part of anything that's happening, so that families or anybody in the region has the time, place and permission to play.
Right, thank you. Nothing further, councillors? Look, thank you very much. You've got away lightly. Look, thanks for the submission, and like others I've said, we'll be considering this over the next week, and certainly be in touch once we've made some decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh, right. Okay, we have caught up a little bit of time. We've got a couple of presentations who aren't going to be coming and talking to us today, Croydon Aviation and Ian Davidson-Watt, which brings us to Mirahiku Kai Collective. Stella O'Connor. Is Stella here? Welcome, Stella. Come along. And we're keen to hear. Mirahiku Kai is something new to me. I hadn't heard about it until I read the submission, so I'm keen to learn a little bit more about what it does and why it's doing it.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, Your Worship, councillors, Gore District Council staff. Ko Stella O'Connor toku ingoa, no Mirahiku ahau. So my name is Stella O'Connor, and I'm here today speaking on behalf of the Mirahiku Kai Collective. And thank you for this opportunity. Right. It's amazing. So the Mirahiku Kai Collective is made up of a number of community groups who have formed around the common vision of enabling Southlanders to have the capability to produce and access good food. So we are newly formed, late last year, and we also have some Invercargill City Council staff from Parks and Rec team and from WasteNet along, and that have contributed to our collective. And we have submitted to the other long-term plans for Invercargill City Council, Southland District Council and Environment Southland. So the Southland Territorial Authorities have repeatedly shown a commitment to building strong, cohesive, vibrant communities, and we know that you all value the importance of community wellbeing. So while there are parts of our community that are thriving, there are also pockets where the opposite is a reality. And feedback from these communities and families show that one of the major struggles is access to quality, nutritious food. And this has been exacerbated by the onset of COVID-19 pandemic as well. So I just want to ask you to remember back to last year with the onset of COVID-19, there would have been a point in time where everyone in this room would have experienced that panicked feeling that they might not have access to food to feed their families. That feeling may have been fleeting for you, but for some of the families we talk to, this is a reality most days. So the pandemic exposed inequalities, but it also revealed solutions, bottom up and top down. And we know that there are more shocks and crises are coming. In fact, we've got a flood at the moment and a bridge broken, so there's a supply chain that's broken for us. So we have the chance to build a more secure, sustainable, resilient local food system, one that is healthier and supports people more fairly. And we're here to seed the kōrero about how together we can all support a regenerative local food system that is prepared in times of natural disasters, climate change, supports self-sustainability, promotes and supports local food production, and the need to provide adequately for our communities. So we've asked all the other Southland councils to come on board and help us lead the progress in this space and help co-design and adopt a Mirahiku Food Resilience Strategic Plan. And this could be used by departments across territorial authorities and councils to inform and support their current and identify future work programs and activities relating to food security and food sovereignty. So there's various actions that we have tabled in the submission that councils can support and promote alongside community action as well to reduce the barriers so that our local food producers are supported, more of our community are growing their own produce, and our most vulnerable have access to good food. Imagine by 2030, Southland has a booming local food system that provides good food to businesses, organisations, communities and individuals. And in order for Southland to have a booming local food system by 2030, we need to make a plan. So now is the time to commit and include food resilience while looking at the long-term planning so that our regions will have thriving social, economic and physical environments providing healthy, affordable and locally grown food for all people. So I'm not here asking for money, which is a great thing, but just commitment to attend workshops and to think about the role that you can play as a council. Thank you.
Look, thank you, Stella, for the presentation. Thank you for the work that you're doing. One thing that this community is well known for is its connectedness. Yeah. And I'm just wondering if you're connected with any other organisations like the Community Networking Trust, for example, who are actively working in not particularly this space, but it would be a space that this would fit with very well. Do you have any connection there at all?
Not with that organisation that you just spoke about. So we are newly formed from late last year, and we've mainly, I think I've said in the submission, the organisations that we've got on board, but this is just the beginning, and we really want to seed it, and we want to bring all communities along and connect the dots for people. And as great presentation I've just followed from. You saw that Sports Southland would like a play lens across the work that you do. We're talking about a food lens across the work that you do. So it might be your procurement policies, where possible and practical, you procure from local providers, just things like that. But
okay, yep. Thank you. Okay, councillors, open for any question. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Stella. That was a good submission. I do have a query about, I see in one of your short-term goals is the allotment gardens. Now, is that for groups or for individual people to take advantage of?
So that was a short-term goal for the Mirahiku Kai Collective. So whereas there's, they are suggested goals that we're going to be doing ourselves, the Mirahiku Kai Collective. And so we're looking, that's through Koha Kai, who are looking at allotment gardens and trying to help with those. Is that what you were referring to? Yeah, so what was your question, sorry?
Just are those allotment gardens for individuals to use or for groups?
Yeah, individuals and groups. Yeah.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Gardine?
Are you aware, I'm not sure if the council Matera had a gardens.
Yeah, amazing.
And also I think Calvin Church, they were running a community garden too here in Gore. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, look, if there's no further questions, look, thank you for your submission. Thank you for making us aware of what you do and how you go about it. And we'll come back to you when we make our deliberations about where to for us next.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move on then to Rural Ratepayers Group, and we have Peter and Mark. Welcome along, gentlemen. come and have a seat, and look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity on behalf of the Rural Ratepayers to present this. I'll let Peter...
If you could just use the microphone, then people that are watching this on a live stream will be able to hear what you're saying.
That's cool, yeah. Okay, thank you, Mayor Tracy and councillors. Thank you for the chance to come along today and address you. Submission to the 10-year plan 2021-2031. The proposed water pipeline and walk bridge to East Gore. This whole proposal has antagonised rate-paying residents who have to live near it and look at it. We would support the sensible option of laying the pipeline beneath the riverbed directly to East Gore, as was done for the Matara Valley Milk water supply. This has been fully discussed locally, and savings are likely to be in the order of $2 to $3 million. The swing bridge will be high maintenance, the wire rope structure likely to vibrate and create noise and different wind speeds. The present road bridge has a walkway for pedestrians on both sides. Road traffic efficiently monitors and moderates pedestrian behaviour. On the lonely walk bridge, hundreds of metres upstream, who is going to monitor violent activities, drug dealing, fighting in the hours of darkness? Security cameras, well, good luck with those wearing hoodies. The unwillingness to save many millions of dollars contrasts sharply with the council quoted savings of $20,000 with the installation of synthetic carpets versus wool carpets within the new council headquarters. Council should have a policy that wherever possible, local product be showcased. The crossbred wool is a carbon sink, is renewable, it's biodegradable, and doesn't require cancer-causing fire retardant to be incorporated during manufacture. It is grown locally and is part of our local economy, from growers to shearers and their families. I just had a quick look at some local menus last night on the internet, and you notice there's Otamita Valley lamb racks on order at restaurants in Gore. There's Silver Fern Special Reserve aged beef available. They showcase local product, and I think that's a good thing to do. I think you should have a policy on that. And it's quite shameful, basically, that you overlooked wool. So, synthetic products, carpet ends up clogging landfills. It doesn't break down. How does this council decision compare with council statement on page 18 on rubbish and recycling? Council has little restraint on expending funds on frivolous activities, yet cannot support a district primary product. We've attached literature there on fire retardant and other chemicals applied to synthetic carpets and the risks involved. A statement from Cavalier Corporation: sustainability is important to us. After the rush towards synthetic carpets in the last 10 to 15 years, people are now realising the benefits that wool offers, and we are seeing consumers turning back to beautiful woolen carpets for colour, innovative style, performance and its natural benefits. Wool was 100% natural. It's grown in New Zealand. It keeps you warm in the winter and cooler in the summer. It's naturally stained, soil and fire resistant. Wool really does tick all the boxes. And I was just thinking about this. If you remember, after the first attack on the Twin Towers, they had smoke and all sorts of damage took place there. It wasn't the time it was destroyed. But they commented at the time how wool stood up to the traffic, and that particular incident was able to be cleaned up and put back in, and was quite a selling point for wool.
There's also the people in England that got burnt in that high-rise building, and they blame the synthetics too. So a lot of people lost their lives.
And it is a danger for firemen who go to the incidents like that with synthetics. The Rural Special Fund, we support option 1. Apply all the Rural Special Fund to the Pyramid Bridge debt reduction. I think our last submission we had here, we suggested that, so we've got to continue to support that. The Pyramid Bridge is the Rural Special Fund is a rural legacy and needs to be invested in a key rural asset. The sooner the better, as inflation and whatever continues to degrade the buying power and the value of that fund. So an interest rate return is inconsequential. The bridge is seen as a very important asset and will be a benefit to all rural ratepayers. The old Gore Library, not the really old one, the one in the middle. Clearly option 3, as we've all heard over the years about the unfixable, uneconomic, ruined state of that building. Repairs have never been seen to be an option. Burdening anyone, there's talk of a trust or whatever been given it, burdening anyone or any other organisation with this liability would not be a kind action. And given Council's weakness for a hard luck story, ratepayers would again be facing expensive repairs to the old library. We say demolish, plant the lawn, end of story. Any alternative to this action would, could, should be seen as part of a disingenuous agenda by the Council. Interest rate risk to ratepayers. Council debt continues to grow, conforming to a set formula. Widespread opinion is mixed. Apparently, according to some, low interest rates are here for a long time. This may or may not be true. There are manifest indicators abounding of international instability. In the interests of transparency and a fully informed ratepayer base, Council should include in future plans a table or a graph demonstrating the effect on rate demands should interest rates increase. Unpaid property rates result in property seizure and sale. People, ratepayers, landowners, have a right to understand the risks of increased interest rates and just what Council has signed them up for. The question on page 20, why change? We say it is not sensible to dissolve the three separate entities to create a single rating area because rural is a completely different animal to the urban areas. This whole idea reeks of desperation because the Gore district has become unsustainable due to a small population, a lack of economy of scale, of sound financial management. Such a move to a single rating area would precipitate an immediate move by rural ratepayers to push for amalgamation with neighbouring districts. The suggestion of a single rating area is the follow-on of an apparent council agenda to bundle distinct, disparate communities of interest together. Rural people have faced the imposition of single ward election at large by this council several times in the past. This was roundly rejected by rural people, and the Local Government Commission agreed. The Local Government Commission understands the difference between right and wrong. We've attached a copy of minutes and statements from Mayor Farry to a meeting of East and Southland Sub-Executive of Federated Farmers before the Gore District was formed. And it gives you an idea what rural people thought they were signing up for. Local government rationalisation. The government has currently moved to clean up the health system by streamlining services and removing deadwood and ballast. Approximately 20 plus CEOs, etc., in the health sector are facing the guillotine to deliver cost savings for better health outcomes for the public. For years, submissions have illustrated the fact and the problem of residents of neighbouring districts flowing in to use Gore District amenities at the expense of Gore District ratepayers. It has become more attractive to live outside the district and cross the boundary and use the Gore amenities. The present administration has had years to address this issue and has avoided exploring options. For example, in the feedback form, Council could or should have sounded out the views of citizens to seek whether they prefer the status quo or would consider participation in a larger district. Years ago, the Gore District was formed by the amalgamation of Gore and the Matara boroughs with a small rural hinterland. Why was this done? The answer, unsustainability and duplication. 30 years later, we have reached the tipping point of duplication and unsustainability. Central government has in recent days signalled a major shake-up in local government, and with the present government, actions speak louder than words. It is interesting to note that in 1989, when the district was formed, Gore had a population of 14,500 people. 30 years later, we have reached 12,500. What has gone wrong? And I was thinking this morning, we can't do this without mentioning Streets Alive. One doesn't like to be unkind, but this hasn't resonated positively with locals. The old warning about Greeks bearing gifts applies here. It would have been better to have saved the council contribution of the $100,000 and kept that for yourselves. There's been several good points in the whole thing, but I sort of feel the two worst intersections haven't been touched. State Highway 1 and the Charlton Road intersection there. That's a bad one. Likewise, the Huron Street Railway Esplanade remains untouched. They should have been dealt with. That would have done a good job. Gina Campbell, daughter of Donald, the speed record enthusiast, was here in the south 30 years ago, and she was effusive in her praise of the wide open streets that we enjoyed in the south here. And I think we should preserve that. Streets are like arteries, and it's crazy to block them. There has been mention locally about maze. I know when you go to Gore sometimes you think, hell, I've got to get home. How do I get home? I've got to think about it. And this matrix I've built up in a lifetime, I've got to zigzag my way across Gore to get home. To me, the scheme is a bit like buying 100 litres of drench just to get a fluffy toy.
So we've reached 10 minutes. Is that the end of your submission?
That's the end.
Okay,
Tracy, yeah.
thank you. Okay, so open for questions. Just a quick one query from me. You mentioned an attachment from former Mayor Farry.
Yes, we got a
Can you deliver that?
there's an
to us, please?
attachment. Yeah, you got. We give you a copy there if you like.
Okay.
There's an attachment there. What his reported comments back then.
Right, thank you. Okay, open for questions. Councillors, any questions you have of the Rural Ratepayers Group? Councillor Gardine.
Yeah, Peter and Mark, if say if for Streets Alive we could deliver less tar seal, would that not lower our ratepayer cost? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? If we narrowed the streets in Gore and had less tar seal to maintain, the rates would go down. Would you agree with that?
What would you do with the bit of street you didn't use, John?
There's one suggestion we could put some tiny houses on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any
What's
other
the current
questions?
maintenance lot on the tar seal and Gore anyway?
Look, not a question we can answer at the moment. Well, any other questions councillors have got? No, there's not. Look, thank you for your submission, and we'll consider the points that you've made, and this time next week we'll be making some decisions around which way we go with the various suggestions that have been made by a variety of groups. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Yeah.
Okay, Southland Federated Farmers. Now, I don't know that Federated Farmers are coming. Do they intend coming? No. No, they don't. So they have provided a written statement for councillors to consider, and we will consider that along with the other submissions that we have. Is there anything in that written statement that councillors want to ask a question about at this point in time, if we need to find out any more information? Does not. We'll move on then to Sally McIntyre. Sally, I think you were just a wee bit before time, but if you're willing to come forward, I invite you to come along. Thank you.
Mine will be very short because I thought I only had 5 minutes.
Have you? I'm sure you'll be able to stretch it out.
I could put a lot more into it.
That's right. Okay, so look, the floor is yours, Sally. We've got you've got 10 minutes, and councillors will be able to ask any questions or clarification they may need at the end of that time. So if you could use the microphone's on.
Right there, or
yeah, it's on. Yes.
it's on. I don't have to put it down.
No, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. As I only have a few minutes, I'm going to only lightly touch on some issues and go into further detail that I want to focus on. My key points largely focus on potential cost savings, prudent decision making, and transparency. Many of you will know that I am passionate about local democracy, and I have been characterised by some around council, somewhat unfairly in my view, as a bit of a tinfoil hatter. Therefore, I would invite councillors to hear what I have to say with an open mind. I'll skip through the first couple of issues. Firstly, stormwater separation. I believe it is appropriate for the property owner to fund the work. That's option 1. And secondly, on the Special Rural Fund, I'd like to see the funds retained for future use that benefits the rural community. That's option 4. I believe there would be great benefit in engaging with rural ratepayers about the use of this fund over the next few years. There appears to be no need for councillors to rush into a decision now. While retirement of debt is always an attractive option, the Pyramid Bridge debt has also been carefully planned by council to be paid off without applying these funds. I now invite you to consider how best you might allocate your limited ratepayer funding on discretionary spending. And this is where I believe it is useful to think about the future of the Old Gore Library and the Mirahiku development additional funding as one discretionary funding pool. Considered together, the additional funding for stage 2 of $360,000, along with the council's preferred option of retaining the old library building as part of this precinct, which might cost council around $400,000 or so, means that council is on the cusp of allocating $750,000 to projects that require real scrutiny in this COVID environment. Tourism and visitor numbers are down significantly now and for the foreseeable future. You only have to look at how Queenstown is struggling, and they have top-tier attractions. The Marawiwa Centre, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, was thought about when destination places were the hot new trend and there were plenty of tourist-filled buses on the road and international travel was free-flowing. Stage 1 was scheduled to be completed by March this year, and although it is running late, the museum reopening will be a good test to see if the council's investment so far will be successful in attracting more visitors to Gore. I must mention that I really appreciate the information provided to me about this project by the Mayor. Given that no staff time is invested in stage 1, I'm curious about when the council stopped providing secretarial support to the trust and whether the project has any oversight at all, given that the arts curator must not be providing regular reports to the trust committee. I only hope that the young accountant on the trust is keeping tabs on everything. Otherwise, it might all end really badly with cost blowouts. I've asked the PGF people to let me know if they are getting reports or monitoring this project. If the council was to use this $750,000 of discretionary funding on core activities, this would go a long way to improving maintenance of rural roads around the district or getting the sewage ponds cleaned. Councillors, you might like to think about getting the chief executive to advise how these options would benefit the community instead, especially as this would be more consistent with council's objectives stated in its financial policies. Also, I am sure you are all keen to avert any repeats of experiments like the Matai Ridge investment, which was an embarrassment for council and sits like a big, expensive white elephant on the council's books. The unprofessional approach taken to that so-called property development was a big disappointment to council. Turning to other matters, I have noted in my submission that there could be significant savings if the council looked at taking a different approach to the cable stay bridge. It is questionable that the council should pursue its current path and be locked into an REMA appeal which could go on for years and may put the NZTA funding offered at risk. And finally, I am looking forward to the council engaging robustly on the rating system changes and broader local government reform. I also look forward to improved transparency. If I was the chief executive, I would be asking, how can I provide the clearest and most transparent breakdown for ratepayers in terms of what each ratepayer was paying? I then would be putting a lot of effort into ensuring my staff produced rating notices that were informative for the average ratepayer, so that ratepayers had an itemised breakdown of what they were paying for each activity. that this has recently ceased is upsetting. But I look forward to this being given prompt attention and priority, as it is one of the key tools to provide ratepayers with confidence that their rating dollars are being appropriately spent by the council, and that staff are being held accountable for the effective delivery of these services. This also gives the community confidence that the Chief Executive is up to the job and delivering for the council. Thank you for the opportunity to submit. I'm happy to take questions from councillors. I think my submission speaks for itself.
Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Sally, for the time you've put into this submission. And like I've said to others, we'll be considering this over the next week and make some deliberations about this time next week. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Right. Big pardon? Oh, have we not got a copy? No. The written. Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, your timing is impeccable, Ernie. Welcome along, and we're just running a little ahead of time. So, if you'd like to come forward, and there's an opportunity for you now to speak to councillors. So, if you just come up to the table up here. So the microphone's on there, Ernie, and hopefully they'll be able to pick you up, because we are live streaming this particular meeting, so people will be watching from afar. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to get yourself ready, and then we're keen to hear what you have to say.
Oh, good afternoon, councillors. I've been in this chamber before many years ago, but anyway, I'll just go over one or two of the items I've got and where it worked out. The question one, I support that operation, that option one, the property owner to fund the work. In my case, I paid for a full stormwater drain right under the river terrace and the river at considerable expense. I think it's only fair that property owners should pay for up to the street gutter. I could well have done it the cheap way by putting the downpipe down with a siphon system to the street gutter, but I decided to go the full way so I could drain any parts around my section. Question two, the plans for the old library building. I support option two, but it's redeveloped as an event centre. It's important that all sections of the Gore District Council community, and not just the arts, are considered. The arts are more than catered for, with the options for the displays with space at the gallery, the Heritage Centre, the distillery, the Rock Street Church with its artist and residence flat, and the large church hall over there which become their home. And also rooms at the Jameson Cumming Wing. An event centre will be available to all the community and not just a few for all sorts of functions, such as a conference room, Federated Farmers and Women's Division meeting places, for art displays, trade displays, modern and ballroom dances, youth dances, family reunions, funerals, weddings and catering during festival week, and rooms for any other type of operation. The children's area may be leased to a caterer, for a cafe, for an all year round cafe, separated from the main area with fold-in doors opened up as needed. The roof, 75% of the existing roof is in good condition, including the frontal appearance of the building, and does not need replacing. Having over 50 years' experience in installations of every type of roofing, including my apprenticeship when only plumbers were trusted with roofing installations and flashings, I know that the roof-mounted air conditioning unit with its poorly flashed penetrations is the main cause of the leaks, plus the flat roof design being a natural gathering area for leaves. With the parapet there, it is a natural place for wind-blown leaves to accumulate. Wind-blown dust and leaves accumulated between the metal to metal flashings, and with no airspace results in capillary attraction, allowing the rainwater over time to saturate the roof timbers, with leaks opening at quite some distance from the real cause. The effects of capillary attraction and how to avoid it is taught to all plumbing apprenticeships. If you want to know about capillary attraction, I'll give you two instances. If you put 2 sheets of glass with a blotting paper between them and that tray of water, eventually the water will run right up and over the top of them. And exactly the same thing effect happens. If you put a bath full of water and you leave your towel in the bath, that towel will eventually drain the whole bath onto the bathroom floor. A newly designed pitched roof over the southeast area is essential to overcome the leaking problems and encase the air conditioning unit. With only the southeastern flat roof having to be replaced, the $1 million set aside could very well cover most, if not all, of the renovation costs. Now to get on to the future of the Royal Fund. I support option 4. During the first Gore District Council, I was chairman of the Royal Affairs Committee. The fund of $980,000 came from the Gore District Council share of the forestry section of the old Southland County Council per land transferred to the Gore District. A proposal from the late Harvey Young with an option for the Gore District Council to purchase 150 hectares of reasonably good hilltop land for $350,000 and to use the then Task Force Green to plant the trees was put to the Mayor, who flatly rejected the proposal and refused to put it on the agenda. That land now as a forest reaching maturity and the trees valued well in excess of 6 figures, with the land still available for future planning. So you would have had quite a few $1 million in there rather than that small paltry farm we got left. The new incoming councillors then decided on a feel-good policy of funding any worthwhile district program, such as giving $80,000 to the Waikaka Bowling Club, who everybody knows has now gone belly up, and that was wasting money. To preserve the balance, I suggest one way to assist farmers is to supply riparian plants for fenced areas on the district waterways at cost. The Reserve Department has proved their ability with plant stock, and if a section of land beside the sewage ponds was made available, it will be a worthwhile cause. That land, incidentally, was originally Grasslands Division, where they developed trees for the reserves in Gore. And I beg of you, please don't give the fund away to help the minority of rural ratepayers. If you have any questions you want to ask me, I've got further comments on, since doing that, I've thought seriously about the whole 10-year program, and there is other ideas which I have. So do you want me to present
You still have
that
time, Ernie, if you'd like to...
Okay, well, I'll present this now. Well, I'm surprised that only 3 subjects were asked about in this particular brochure put out. So what about, say, item 1? A review of council head staff from the top down. If central government ministers can handle more than one portfolio, surely council managers with their supplied vehicles can do the same, such as the finance minister being the finance assistant to the district manager, etc. 2, a review of councillors. Do we really need 12 members? The Mayor has stated the councillors decide the agendas. If so, then it shall be part of the 10-year plan to become more open to the public. I've heard lots of comments about our ghost councillors who seemingly are not pulling their weight, are never heard, and want most items to be held in committee. The ratepayers want to know who you are and for you to justify your position with robust debate at open council meetings. If you're not prepared for that, then ask yourself, should I really be here? And the other last one is the Santa Claus handouts by the government. Up to now, the council has been happy to receive them, but each one has come at great increase in cost to the ratepayers in years to come. The library, for instance, moved from pillar to post with more increases in costs. The pretty streets, what a schmozzle that is. After it is over, perhaps the filled boxes could be donated to pensioners for raised vegetable gardens, so as they can find it quite hard to bend down at times. The bridge of the cycleway, not yet costed, and the continual drain on funding. For every reason to do something, there are alternatives. And that's what the council is there for, to find a better alternative and not to go along with the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. So open for any questions that councillors may have at this point. I think you've been fairly clear in your thoughts on a number of issues, and I thank you for that. I don't think councillors have. I would just make a comment, and I, along with yourself, were part of that first Gore District Council, and I well remember the debate around the hilltop land of the 150 acres and going and visiting and looking at what the opportunities were, and probably we didn't make the right call at that stage, but there certainly was a full council debate on that particular project. The Waikato Bowling Club, that's one of the reasons that the Rural Fund was locked up, so that it couldn't be used for projects such as that into the future. And now it's been allowed to build to a reasonable size, so that's particularly good. So I just acknowledge those 2 points that you did make. Okay, councillors, nothing else. Look, thank you, Ernie, for taking the time, and thank you for arriving early and being prepared to speak early and as clearly as you did. So thank you. Right, we're still ahead of time. So I'm just looking around the room to see who's here that is a submitter, and I notice Hamish Mackay, you've just come in. You're not down to speak until 4 o'clock, but there is an opportunity if you'd like to now, just to come and share your thoughts with councillors, so feel free.
Sometimes it's supposed to be early.
It does. That's right. Depends what you've got to say.
Well, just getting myself organised. Thank you for having me here today, and I acknowledge worship the Mayor and the councillors, and I more so acknowledge the process. The process to me is a two-way thing. It's a time for council and executive staff to consult with ratepayers, but it's also a time for ratepayers to express their views and concerns. Yep. And one of the most important things I picked up on in the 10-year document is water, whether it's wastewater, stormwater, or good old HTO at the tap. What a major issue, and central government are compounding this issue with changing and evolving regulations and the new water regulator coming into force. The funding of, I don't know whether I should have put my nose in this or not, but the funding of separation of wastewater and stormwater in pipelines in Gore needs to be done on a coordinated approach. The council pipework on the street could be recovered by option 3 but the property work be funded by individual ratepayers or the property owners. The non-compliant property owners that don't want to, I was struggling for a better term to put there, non-compliant property owners that aren't prepared to fund their own property work, the council could loan them the money and be collected back at a targeted rate over a period of years. This would have to be carefully implemented on a street-by-street basis, and of course communication and diplomacy would have to be at the utmost between council, property owners and private contractors. The other thing I wish to touch on while we're talking about water is this new regulator. I call it TA. Being of Scottish heritage, my Maori pronunciation isn't that fluent. I sometimes call it taken and abuse. Maybe at the moment it would be prudent for council to delay any spending until the regulator's fine print is known to you all. But I do want to say this. The water pipes and associated infrastructure is owned by all current ratepayers. And more importantly, the water is owed by no one, or owned by no one. Sure, the council has a consent for its water take, but that does not give anyone ownership of water, only the right to use the volume of water consented. If the new Crown entity thinks different, we should all turn the lights out and move somewhere else. Now, the main thing I want to talk about in my verbal submission is the idea of having a lesser complex rating system. I bring this up because one of the things I've experienced in the past is that documents like the 10-year plan, once it's approved, the Gore District Council executive staff regard it as the gospel of Gore and surrounding districts, according to Steve Parry and Associates. The current system may look complex, and I agree it is complex in places, but it does give council flexibility in applying rates on hopefully some sort of fair basis for where people live. Rates should be applied on a service for services provided, not on a perceived ability to pay. Without differentials, how can council rate a farm at Atama with a capital value of, say, $8,315,000 and compared to a house in Clyde Street with a capital value of $310,000 on the same level? There is a lot of positives to the current system. It gives councillors and council and executive staff enough flexibility to apply targeted rates, use the UAG to spread the rate burden fairly, and I think it's the fairest for all. And that's really all I wanted to say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hamish. You've made a number of points in your submission, and it's now over to councillors if they want to clarify any of those points or ask any questions relating to those. Would any councillors like to do that? John?
Just with the current government talking about rating reform, what are your thoughts on reform in our area and going forward?
I assume, Councillor Gardine, you're hinting at maybe reform or amalgamation of councils in our local area?
Reform in general could probably target Southland is probably what's going to be targeted, I suppose.
I know I perhaps, I hope I didn't upset anyone by attending that meeting on Monday. I was there representing the Atama Water Scheme.
I think it was good you were there. Actually.
Thank you. But I did pick up on the fact that I can see that the government are going to push for councils in our area to combine. I would suggest that we keep out of Invercargill City and Dunedin City. I think Gore, Southland and and Otago would make a really good, efficient rural council. It would spread costs, it would minimise administration costs, it would minimise the cost of some executive staff. Yeah, it could be of benefit to everyone.
Okay, any other questions from councillors? There's not. Look, Hamish, thank you for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you, Mayor Hicks.
Thank you for the thought that you've put in to your submission, and we'll take those comments on board and certainly dwell on them as we make some deliberations about this time next week. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're still ahead of time. So I notice Ian Cupid, would you like to come and share your thoughts? Welcome along, Ian, and you have 10 minutes.
Your Worship, CEO and councillors, I'm here. I am a retired electrician and I do a fair bit of walking, so you'll see me around town quite a lot, all the streets.
I've seen you around a lot lately.
You see me around? Yes, you do. Right. Now, where do we start? Gore's Think Big projects. The first one, the council building. Did it need doing? Did it need doing? Second one, the library. Why didn't we put the roof on the old library? I have here a 2018 to 2028 Gore, Are We Ready? And in there's a beautiful roof on, a beautiful roof on the old library. And it looks very good. That never went ahead. Why? That would have been done and dusted now. The roof done, the library done. The third thing I've got is a subject that, God, the bridge. The bridge. The bridge, to me, is just a complete waste of time. We get water from East Gore over to the Hillbury there by using pumps, pipes. So why do we have to build a bridge that nobody wants? Or if we have to build a bridge, we don't have to go to the monstrosity that has been put forward. One of the things that these three big projects have taken is leaving us in heavy debt. The bridge, I believe, is going to cost something like 10.8 million. The library, which is not finished yet, will be 4 million plus. And it's just something that, well, obviously in the council building here was 6 million. And it's something that the ratepayers have got to fund, haven't we? We've got to fund this. And as a ratepayer, my rates every year are doing this. Every year. Now, in this document here that was put out 2018 to the 28, there was a graph here that said the rates for 2021 will be 4.53%. Fair enough. But what are they going to be this year? Something like 8.2? Now, will that occur next year? And the year after? And the year after? Remember, us ratepayers, a lot of ratepayers, as Tracy has said, we have got an ageing population here in Gore.
it is an ageing population. And we have got to keep funding, our rates, our pension is going down and down and down. They don't increase our pension by 4.7% every year. So it comes out of our either savings or the pension. And what I'm saying is that surely we have to try and keep the rates at a reasonable level. And at 8.2% is not a reasonable level, not in my mind anyway. The next thing is, as they've all been talking about, is the wastewater and water. On Elizabeth Street, I think is a bad one. But I mean, who is going to fund this? I don't want to see pensioners having to fork out between, say, 7,000 and 9,000 to have their wastewater and water separated, stormwater separated. And it's a lot for pensioners. That is a real big slice. So, again, I don't know. Right, that's one. The thing, another question I've got for you, for the council, is why haven't we started this project before now? This project of separating the stormwater, wastewater, why are we just starting it thinking, oh, better do something about it? Why hasn't it been done years ago? I've been here 15 years now in Gore, and it's never been mentioned, or it's been mentioned and passed over. Oh, we'll do it next time. But it's not right. I mean, it's come to a head now where we've got to do it. So, I mean, we should really have thought of this, thinking, oh, well, we should do this. Well, let's hope it does. Yes, that one. I suppose a quick one. As a quick one is the Streets of Life programme, which I think you've got a meeting afterwards. I walk these streets every day, and every day I see the same 3 or 4 people who I talk to. It's the same couples every day. You see them walking the streets no matter what, and I do a big area, and we always talk, good morning, and we all have a chat. There's never, and the people I see, they all say the same thing, and it is not very positive about the Streets of Life project. And when this morning, walking past the pocket parks, I thought, well, what a disgrace they are. I'm sorry about that, but they're a complete waste of time. And if they get the word go, or they've gone, do it by Friday, because Friday we get the gold guitars here and the streets are full, or should be. I don't mind what they've done in some of the, on Irk Street there, but you've got to open up Brown Street, you've got to do Eccles Street, let the traffic flow through. That's it, folks. Thank you for listening.
Look, thank you, Ian. Again, you're fairly clear in your thoughts about what the council does, what it does wrong from time to time. So it's open now for questions from councillors, for clarification, anything you might like to check in with. Doesn't look like it. I think you've made it crystal at this point, Ian, so thank you for your comments. We will be, like everybody else, considering these thoughts over the next week and make some deliberations this time next week. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, look, I think we'll take a break now for a quarter of an hour and reconvene in about 15 minutes. Thank you.